So let's get through this. The idea here I was going to talk about was like give you a little bit of theory, talk about what whiteboard challenges are, give you the ABCs of whiteboard challenge. It's kind of the thing that I'm bringing today to the theory of this, and then also we're going to do a little bit of exercise in FigJam. We're going to practice with the marker tool, sketch the scene. We're going to do a whiteboard challenge, an actual one, in this workshop. So get ready to participate. And then at the end of that, I'm going to go through some pro tips for in the real life, and then will be time for Q&A and discussions. So that's kind of the overview. Let's get into it. Hi, my name is Jeff. I'm going to do this again. So I used to be the head of design at CareerFoundry. Before that, I was working in UX and as UX product designer at tech companies in Austin, Texas. Been working in UX and product design for around 10 years. Now I teach an advanced UX course for the Fountain Institute. I like these little critters that are hanging out on top of a computer screen. I've done some videos for CareerFoundry, so maybe you've seen some of those. I really like making content for UX and product designers. Love reading design books, and this is me explaining UX to everyone. I've kind of found that as soon as your UX career starts, you seem to spend the rest of your career explaining what UX is. So that's a pretty important part of our career, and I like talking about UX design and product design, product thinking, and a lot of those different things. That's why I'm really excited about this workshop, because we're actually going to be talking about one of the easiest ways to display your product thinking and your UX design skills and your like big picture skills. So let's get into it. So some important stuff. Questions are appreciated. Now the big markers finally let me in. I can see the questions right here, so I can respond to some of those. Yeah, hi from Eva from Vancouver, British Columbia. Nice to see you. Yeah, it's good to see that everyone's here. I'm from originally Arkansas and Texas, now living in Berlin. So happy to see anybody who's from there. I think a lot of students from CareerFoundry, even a few students from the Fountain Institute. So welcome everybody. Be ready to switch tabs to FigJam and back. There's going to be maybe some back and forth. Keep the audio on here so you can hear me, and I'll let you know. But you might just be able to, when you get into the FigJam part, have that up, also have this up so we can switch back and forth. Happy National Eat What You Want Day. That's a super important part. What is the point of a whiteboard challenge? So many of you might have had a little bit of experience with whiteboards. Oh, someone from Bentonville, Arkansas. Welcome. Sorry. Maybe some of you have some experience with a whiteboard challenge. Maybe you've done one before. Maybe you're about to have one, which this is going to be perfect timing. As you can see, as you'll see later, I'm going to leave you with some resources where you can prep and do a little bit more. But what is the point of these things? Why do they do whiteboard challenges? Well, whiteboard challenges can be a little bit scary because whiteboard challenges force you to demonstrate how you think about solving problems and thinking about problems, and your design skills are kind of shown because you're sketching a little bit, so it feels a bit like a test. I know that can be a very anxious, stressful thing, but today we're going to get a chance to practice it in a safe environment where you can get a little demo, try it out for yourself. Then by the time you do it again, you'll feel a lot more comfortable. And we're going to do it in FigJam, which is a pretty cool new tool. You'll walk away with understanding that tool a little bit better. So I've normally been on the other side of whiteboard design challenges. For whatever reason, I didn't have to do one for the first few jobs that I had, but have kind of set one up before as a hiring manager. And then I did a lot of research getting ready for this workshop. So what I did was go through everything that I could find on the internet from the sort of whiteboarder's perspective. I already have some opinions I brought to the table, what I would expect to see a designer do in a whiteboard design challenge. So I'm combining what I could find on the internet with what I had in my head already. And these are some real quick highlights from my research that I thought were relevant. They're not evaluating your solution. That's nice, right? They're just going to evaluate the way you communicate, the way that you're open to getting feedback. Also spontaneity, collaborating with other team members. So kind of like how you work with the people that are in the room during the whiteboard challenge. A big part of it as well is practice. So you're gonna have to be able to think on your feet. Like the first 10 minutes of this, when I was having technical difficulties, like I only have about 10% of the CPU of my brain working, right? Because there's stress, you're thinking about lots of different things when you're kind of on stage, much like I am kind of right now. That's going to limit your ability to think. You're probably going to talk faster. You're probably going to stutter. You might say weird things might come out. Lots of things might happen that you're not prepared for. And practice really helps to avoid that kind of thing from happening. So I would definitely not recommend going into a whiteboard design challenge having never tried out a whiteboard design challenge. So that's what we're going to do today. And I like this other quote here by Eliza. So the most common mistake that she sees is that people get too focused on the end result and the sketches of the final solution. And we're going to talk about some ways to avoid that. But I also agree with that. I think that getting too lost in the details is probably the biggest problem that I've seen in all the research and also in designers when they're doing these challenges. So yes, I did a lot of research. I really like doing research. I actually did my research in FigJam. So I'm going to share that actually at some point. So yeah, what I did was just go through it was like 7 articles, 4 videos, Google image search. I love to do research on Google image search. Yeah, so I looked through all that stuff and was finding, okay, what is it that people are saying about whiteboard design challenges? How was it at Uber? How was it at Airbnb? Blah, blah, blah. It's all out there on the internet. And I went through that because I think it's really important to get the landscape and figure out what people are saying, because things have changed since when I was maybe going to do whiteboard design challenges. So try to have a current update on everything. And I'm going to start with the ABCs of whiteboarding challenges. So these are simple. A, ask for context on the problem. That's the first thing. So I'm going to go through these. The reason I'm saying the ABCs of whiteboard challenges is because they're so simple that if you panic and you have to think on your feet, you can go ABC, ABC, what was ABC? And then you can come up with it. And don't try to keep too much in your head at once, because that's going to distract from thinking about what you're about to say and things like that. So the ABCs of whiteboard challenges, I think, can help you to make sure that you can think on your feet and still kind of follow the overall general approach. And if you do these 3 things, I feel like you're going to be pretty successful. You may not be perfect, you may not ace it, but it's going to be enough where you're going to be like, you're going to make it to the next round. And that's the important thing. So A, ask for context on the problem. What does that mean? I mean, shouldn't we be out there providing solutions? Isn't that what designers do? Well, if you're in the UX space at all, even UI designers as well, product designers, a lot of the things that the value we bring is to the problem space. So we're not just problem solvers, we're problem finders. And that's why you need to ask about the context, because you need to make sure you're finding all the problems that there are. So ask for context on the problem. That is the first thing you should do. And I mean, literally stop them and say, okay, do we have any more details on blank? What do you think that this user goal is? Can you tell me anything about how the business is running and what's their strategy? Just questions like that. I don't want to give you the perfect questions, because I think it completely depends. And as I said, I try to keep it simple because there is no right way to do a whiteboard design challenge. It's going to change. It's going to change on the people that are giving the whiteboard design challenge. It's going to change on the company. But one thing that I saw almost universally with all the whiteboard research that I did was people always want you to ask for more context and ask questions. You can do this as you're sketching. That's perfectly okay. You can be sketching along, saying, oh yeah, I'm writing. What else is there that you can give me on this? So asking questions, always, always, always good. And that'll be super important when you're trying to, make sure that you're thinking in the right way, reframing things, zooming out. So that's what asking for context on the problem will do. The next one is big picture experience, not details. What does that mean? So for example, if you're talking about something where it's like a ride sharing service, right? I wouldn't be as interested to see what the UI of that ride sharing service looks like. I'd be interested to see what's the interaction between the driver and the rider. Where do they meet? What are the kind of real life interactions involved in that experience? And that's what when I'm thinking that in my head, I'm zooming out and showing just high level user flows. So high level user flows are a really great way to talk about your solution when it comes time to get into that part of whiteboard design challenges. So yeah, that's one way that you can think big picture experience. The thing is, like, even if you have a lot of time left, I still, if I was in a UX and a product design interview, I wouldn't recommend getting into too many details. You want to make sure that the task flow is right, that the user flow is right, that it makes sense with the people in the room. Like, what do you think about this? Do you think that we could maybe remove a few steps here? Like kind of optimizing it from the big picture experience. So I'm glad everyone's sharing their LinkedIn in the chat. That's amazing. Yeah, so A and B. So if you ask for context on the problem, right? Not just the solution, the problem. Get to the big picture experience, not just the details. You're going to be doing pretty well. Because this is going to allow you to be kind of zoomed out enough where you're getting to the real issue at hand and not getting stuck in tiny little UI details. Close the loop at the end. Now, the first A and B I saw a lot of when I was doing my research, but I didn't see very much of this. And this is anybody heard of the peak end rule? Anybody in the chat heard of the peak end rule? That's the idea that like the beginning and the end and the peak of the experience are the things that they will remember. So the end of the experience is super important. You want to take all the context, all the questions, all the sketches, all the user flows, all the different feedback, and you want to draw it back into the original challenge. Bring it full circle and end strong. I always think about this like in the Olympics, they do 13 different somersaults, doing all kinds of amazing things, and they have to stick the landing. They hit the ground and they stay and they don't stumble at all. That's what I think of when I think of close the loop at the end. You want to make sure that you end really, really strong, because that's probably the impression they're going to have. If you feel like you didn't end super strong, talk a little bit more. And so you go like, cool, I got my ender, and then just kind of go like, and that's how that's how I would solve your original challenge, period, and wait. So I think that's super important when it comes to whiteboard challenges, because it is important how you come across and communicate things. And closing the loop is an excellent way to bring in the full circle and just check as well that the challenge that you set out to solve, that you actually did solve. Yeah, so those are the things I'd like you to keep in mind as we're doing the whiteboard challenge today. A, B, C. Ask for context on the problem. Big picture experience, not details. Close the loop at the end. Okay, from here, we are going to go to the whiteboard challenge simulator in FigJam TM. So last night, I made this little experience in FigJam. We want to do the workshop in FigJam. So, if you're doing something like Miro, you can get a lot of people in at the same time. You can see the cursor. Well, in FigJam, it's a little bit newer. So what we're going to have you do is get this like template in FigJam. And yeah, I think Jakob just shared that. You should see that. You can also go into FigJam and just search Whiteboard Challenge Simulator, and you can find it as well. So go into FigJam now, open up that file, and you should see some little sections, and they're numbered. Is that file working for everyone? Is everyone finding that file? I'll let some people.
I think so. I see people duplicating the file. We're at 26 right now. So yeah, I think it's working. But if it doesn't, let us know.
Okay, great. Yeah, so you'll have to duplicate it. Then you'll have access it. It'll just be for you. No one else is going to see this. It's a safe space to try out whiteboard challenges. So all right, yeah, everyone's got it. Great. So what I want you to do is go to this section. So this is the first section we're going to talk about. We're going to learn the marker tool. I've sent Jakob an image. And what we're going to do, once you found this section, just zoom in on it like you have there. What we're going to do is play a game called Sketch the Scene. So Jakob, do you have that image that I sent you earlier?
I do, yes. So that'll be a challenge. Okay, listen up. Here's what I see on the image.
Okay, wait, hang on a sec. Just let me explain everything.
Okay.
The marker tool, by the way, is all you're using. So Jakob's about to describe this image. You're going to have to go with just what you can hear, just your ears, and he's going to describe the image, and I want you to sketch it. And Jakob, do they have a way to post images here?
No, not really. Sadly, no.
Maybe if you can upload it to Google Drive and send us a link, we can also take a look at a few of them
Yeah,
afterwards.
let's try that.
But we're going to give Jakob probably about 5 minutes to describe what he sees in this picture, and then you're going to try and draw what you hear. And this is going to let you practice the marker tool. So Jakob, take it away.
I think my dog has something to say as well. Big discussion. Okay, so we are, or I am seeing a lake. We are in Florida. We are quite close to the shore. I see some trees on the shore, but majority of the picture is a lake. And in the middle of that picture, I see a small alligator, just kind of drifting on that water. And what's quite surprising is that on top of that alligator, we have a raccoon just standing and kind of cruising. So a lake quite close to the shore. I see some trees in the background and on the sides of the image. Alligator, and on top of that, we have a standing raccoon.
Okay, Jakob, which side is the raccoon in the alligator?
Okay, so they are facing to the left, so they're traveling from the right of the image to the left of the image.
And is there a lot of trees around? And we're in the water, right? You said.
We are in the water, but we're quite close to the shore. So I imagine the alligator and the raccoon are just taking off from the shore. So we see quite a lot of trees in the background on the other coast, but there's only one tree on the right.
I love everybody panicking as you're adding details. Yeah, the marker tool is pretty difficult. That's why we're doing this exercise. Jakob, is the alligator, is it happy or sad?
Oh, it's really hard to say, but I imagine looking at the raccoon.
Here's a raccoon, by the way. That's a raccoon.
They look like they're up for adventure, you know?
Okay, and is the raccoon happy?
I would say he's quite, I don't know, terrified, or he's not sure if he's really taking it all in, you know? I think he's quite a bit confused.
Cool, thanks for trying to get inside his head, Jakob. Appreciate that. So as you could see, like if you try to erase something, you kind of have to select the thing and then it will erase. I can actually, so it's a little bit difficult to use. There's no eraser tool, right? As you can see, there are like just these things here. You just got the marker tool. You just press M to start that, and then that gets going. So press M to start the marker tool, and that will get you drawing. And then you have to, I think you select V. You click this little thing here. This is your selector tool. I think it's also V. And then you can select the line that you've created, delete it, and write another. So it's a little bit more like Figma in the way that it works. But the marker is a little bit difficult to use. So yeah, as you'll see later, we're going to also use stick-it notes so that we can work inside the whiteboard. Okay, how was that? Would you use FigJam to draw in real life? Your drawing is a mess. Just drew over with a white marker. Clever. Okay, we have a hack from Rania Montasser. Thank you so much. So you can switch the color to draw over. Yeah, no one would. Okay, I love the delay here. Okay, so this is going to be a little bit harder than real life. Seems like by the look of it. Yeah, 5-year-old drawings. If you had a Wacom tablet, which I did try a little bit the other day, it's a little easier. But yeah, maybe they'll come out with an iPad Pro app soon. So, okay, now that you've had a little bit of chance to try out the marker tool, click around. Yeah, I do like the Envision marker as well. If you have a chance to click around, hopefully you can get just a quick idea of how to use the tool. If you want to go back later, there's a really great onboarding file they give you. I can't remember where you find it exactly, but it kind of demonstrates a lot of the different things. And I love this show versus tell way to do onboarding. So I thought that the FigJam onboarding was really good. You might want to check it out later when you have a little time. So I think they really know how to do it. So now that we've sketched the scene, there is, as you can see, that was area 1. That was the first flag. Yeah, you can share your screens. Oh, you can even share. Yeah, maybe Jakob, if you find some good ones, you can drop it in or let us know. I'd love to see what people's raccoons look like. Yeah, crocodile was also, I know this picture. Let me show you the picture actually, just a second. I know where this is. Let me grab the picture really quick. Okay. You can also just Google raccoon riding alligator. I'm going to show it for you here. We don't actually know if this was a real photo. The thing is, there's rumors that it was faked, but there we go. So that was the actual image that Jakob was looking at and describing. Jakob, I'd say pretty good job from what I heard. I thought you were doing a pretty good job of describing this. So that's the image that Jakob was talking about. So if anyone got really, really close, I'd love to see it. So now we got through step 1. If you look in this FigJam board, you can just kind of follow it. Step 1, it kind of winds around like a Mario game, like a Mario map. So that was step 1. We're going to move past step 2. So you do not need step 2. The reason step 2 exists is if you want to do this on your own later, you can generate a design challenge with this tool. It's called Designer Size, designersize.com. You can click links here in FigJam and it'll take you out. So when you come back to this template, you can go straight out to that Designer Size website, see your design challenge, and then continue on to step 3, which is what we'll work on next. So step 3 is the whiteboard challenge. Now, I will try and watch the chat if you have issues, and we'll try and respond to them and kind of be watching that. I'm going to play some music while you work. Normally, it'd be nice if I could kind of hear you and see you, but we're a little bit disconnected. As I said, FigJam's not quite capable of all the things of Miro in a sort of mass class situation. But a few things before we begin. So you should see step 3. This is the whiteboard challenge. On the whiteboard challenge, you can see that there is a whiteboard and there are 2 people staring at you, trying to give you a little bit of pressure because I wanted you to feel like it might actually be in real life. Do you feel the pressure? I hope so. But I also hope that it doesn't bother you because you got to get used to that kind of thing. So what we're going to do with the whiteboard challenge is we're going to use the marker tool mainly to sketch out solutions. When you get to mapping out things, maybe getting into a little bit of wire flows, even wireframes, use the marker tool. And you can use that to show the screens or user flows. They do look mean. They're professional too. Be careful. Yeah, so there are also going to be a lot of text you need to put in there. So that's why I recommend using the Post-it notes. You can click S and it will open up the Post-its. So S, M, and V are all the shortcodes you need. V goes back to the pointer tool where you can move stuff around. M is for the marker. S is for the stick-it note. Hopefully you're in the board now just listening to me, but I've circled them here. If you look back at Big Marker, you can see the two things we're going to use. Now, I didn't want to give you too much do this, do that before we begin, because I'd like to see what you come up with, and I think you need to experiment and iterate a little bit. But what I would recommend is dividing the board in half. Now, what you're going to do is you're going to have, I said that you need to ask for context around the problem. Well, you can put all of that here. So that's going to be where you write down stuff about the problem. And when you get into time to start sketching out the solution, put all of that here. So that way you can divide up your work. When I was doing research, I saw that a lot of people do this. Of course, everyone's got their own way of dividing up the whiteboard based on what they want to learn. But basically, we're going to read you a challenge here in a little bit, and you're going to just sketch it out on this whiteboard in the simulator in FigJam. So if anyone just joined, what we're doing is we're in this FigJam file. We're at step number 3. And I'm about to show you the challenge, and you're going to look at the problem and look at the solution and try and solve this whiteboard challenge. And I'll show you what you'll be doing here in a second. Anybody have big questions before we move on to the next step? Did everyone find the file? Yep, there's the file again.
Yeah, so I'm posting the file again. So please duplicate the file and then just follow Jeff's instruction.
Can you guys get off my file? That's what happens when you post a link to your file. Yeah, so no one's going to see this. If you duplicate this file for yourself and don't share it, no one will have access to this. So I'm going to give you 20 minutes for the challenge. So you're going to have until the end of the hour for this challenge. I'm going to call out the time periodically. There's no timer in FigJam. Jakob, if there is one in Big Marker, feel free to turn it on. But yeah, in a second, we're going to start. So if everybody's ready, everyone's got the file, we're going to talk about it. Good question. You can ask me things in the chat for sure. I'll be watching. Okay, so here we go. You can do this later, but this is the challenge. So in 2022, Amazonas is launching the Kindle Sketchpad XL 3000. The CEO there, Jeff Bezos, is wanting to release a 24-inch digital tablet that will allow you to draw in any light using e-ink technology, and it's going to have the same responsiveness as paper. So the challenge is to design an app for the tablet. This new tablet, this huge tablet, this is going to be to scale here. It's going to be gigantic. So design an app for the tablet to help young creatives improve their drawing abilities. Okay, so I'm going to leave this up. You can look over here to reference the challenge. Make myself a little bit smaller. Yeah, so you can see the challenge. Basically, this is where you can refer to the challenge, and then you're going to work in the FigJam file. And if you have questions, I'll be watching the chat. But are there any questions before I start the timer? Remember, divide up your board in half. Put details around the problem on here. Put the details and images, sketches around the solution on the right side. Okay? All right. You can post your questions right here. I'll see them. Okay, I'm starting a timer, and you'll have 20 minutes. So get to work. Feel free to switch back over to Big Marker if you need more context and want to remember what this challenge is. So your challenge is to design an app for the tablet to help young creatives to improve their drawing abilities. That's it. You can do it any way you want. But I would suggest maybe thinking about the ABCs and then consider to also look a little bit more into the problem and a little bit more into the solution with very high-level approach. How young are they? Great question. So I'm going to say that these people are 18 to 26. 18 to 26. Yeah, sketches to the right, problem and text to the left. That sounds good. That's a pretty good approach, I think. Mm-hmm. The only constraints are it doesn't have color. That's a big constraint. So these are people much like yourselves. I said young creatives, but I said that because I wanted them to be more like yourselves. I'm assuming a lot of you are young creatives. So if you have some things that you know about yourself, that could be helpful, but definitely check it with me first. There is a stylus, that's right. The skill level of people, they're just novices. They're not doing it professionally. They think of it more like a hobby. I don't know what kind of drawings young creatives are doing. What kind of drawings are you doing, Brenna? Prima? Good question. Accessibility needs. See, there's a great question you can do to ask for context. The accessibility needs, it's black and white, much like the Kindle. So not as many accessibility needs because it's generally more high contrast, but also you can do gray. Yes, they're going to be drawing raccoons. That's a very good point. I'm going to play a little music. Why would they want the tablet instead of drawing on paper? That's a good question. Let's say that they're trying to not haul around paper materials everywhere they go. Let's say that they're mobile, on the go a lot. It's hard to focus, Lilia. I know. That's why the music's there. Maybe it'll help you. Thanks for coming out, Hutch. Any assumptions? Good question. So I'm making the assumption already that it's going to work much like a phone app, in that you select it from the Kindle Sketchpad XL 3000 and then it opens up. But if you want to think about more integrating it a little bit, that's also a possibility. Of course, anybody can use it. That's a good question, Julia. She asked if is it only for people who are interested in drawing anyway? Or are you trying to get non-creatives to draw with it as well? So our target demographic, our target sort of demographic, like behavioral segment would be like young creatives who are interested in developing their skills in drawing, because it's kind of tangential to their careers. So there is some push to get better at drawing, but they're not artists. They're not artists like Jeff Bezos over here. That's a good question. Stephanie Shaw asks, is there a social component, like options to post or share? So that could be an interesting one. The client here is Amazonas. So they're looking to get some apps into their new tool here before it launches, right? So it's going to launch in 2022. So we're going to start now thinking about a drawing app. And the point of this drawing app is to help people improve their drawing abilities. Okay, now we're getting lots of questions. How does this feel to be asking questions on something like this? I know it's a little weird to type in the chat. Normally you would be saying this out loud, but it's still helpful to practice, like knowing what questions to ask. Will it have recorded videos or live demos? No, it won't do video. It's like a Kindle screen. Anya, how's it going? What about collaboration? Would they want feedback? I think that they're going to want to know if they're doing things properly. Like, it's up to you to decide how much, instructions we're giving them on drawing. I would say little tips, ways to improve in form, maybe some techniques, something like that. But we're not talking about like Peloton or anything like that. Good question, Blake. Does it need to tie in with other Amazon products? It doesn't have to work on other Amazon products. It doesn't have to work on the phone. This is meant to be something offered with the Kindle Sketchpad XL 3000 when it launches. So that's all that matters at the moment. It will have its own stylus. Will there be a tips and feedback? I'm getting a lot of questions about feedback. I would ask for more clarification on that. Okay. Will there be anyone to give criticism? So there won't be a live person involved in this app. That's not what Jeff Bezos has asked for. But if you want to sketch that to add another interaction, I would let that slide. I'm never going to know you did it. Will there be a grading metric? Interesting question. Sounds like an interesting feature idea. How do you define how people are improving their art if there's no feedback? Good question. Very good question. I'm already starting to hear some different approaches you could take based on that. Beth Yesos. That could be better. I like that, Mindy. Okay, good question, Rosemary. Is there a free trial or paywall from the get-go? Well, Amazonas is going to be funding this project. So for the next year, we have funding. So it's not as important with launch in 2022 that we find ways for consumers to pay. Since you are a designer, you're not working for Amazonas, you're working for a company that's working with Amazonas. And you're going to be working on this drawing app. Let's say free. Definitely free to begin. Not subscription yet. Okay, Abdel says, I feel like the questions are focusing on details. How can we ask for the bigger picture? Does anyone have some big picture questions? Remember, you're trying to do the big picture experience. You have 12 minutes left, plenty of time. Okay. I'm going to try and find big picture. So like, is it an account mandatory? Will it let you save a text document PDF? Like, sure, these constraints could be helpful, but what I think the big interaction here is going to be like, how is this app going to be helping people improve their drawing abilities? There's lots of ways you could be doing that. So I think features around saving and files and PDFs, like that's kind of delaying getting to that real interaction, which is going to be between a human and some software, possibly another human behind that software, as I've heard a few of you talk about. How's the business running? Who are their competitors? Okay, here we go. So we have had some success, the company that I will not mention. So that's why Amazonas has reached out to us to design this app. Imagine me trying to hire you as a designer for this company with Hef Bethos as our client. So we've had some success with some little drawing sort of tutorials on phones. So we did a little bit of that. No stylus is involved yet. So we're looking to move into more of a stylus situation. Will there be sample drawings? It's up to you. Who are their competitors? So a big competitor is a great question. A big competitor is Remarkable. Remarkable is a tablet that does something very similar. I can tell you a little bit about Remarkable. They have their own ecosystem and their own software. So they wouldn't be working with Amazonas store or anything like that. They don't have as much money as Hef Bethos. And they're also kind of targeted towards the young digital creative. So there is some competition in this space. That's why the Sketchpad XL3000 is going to be XL, because the Remarkable is a little bit smaller. These questions are getting good. Yes. Yes, good big picture question, Yejin. And I'm sorry if I say people's names wrong. I'm trying. Okay, we're at 11 minutes. You have 9 minutes left. Okay, Paula. If it's the 3000, has there been a 2000 version? Was it popular among artists? Sorry, I'm gonna play another song. Yeah, so there were a few prototypes that failed. Basically, the reason for this product is that they're thinking that this can replace one of those giant sketch pads, right? There's nothing in the market like that. There was a few trials at smaller things, so there's been some work done. Secretly guarded, of course. Hef Bethos isn't very forthcoming, so this is the first public launch. Why did the previous version fail? Okay, here we go. See, now we're getting to some really interesting things. The previous version failed because they tried to do it in color. Amazon is classically bad at doing devices with color. Their Fire product failed, but they were doing something more for creatives and artists. They're not sure if it was the technology that made it to fail or if it was the fact that young digital creatives don't see Amazon as a source for their hardware. It's a good question. How does this product benefit the world? Great question. So as you know, devices are made out of lots of toxic minerals. That's why the Kindle Sketchpad XL 3000, being a paper white technology, it's going to be a physical ink. So it won't be as much minerals. It'll be a little better for the world than an iPad or something like that. Although they are doing studies right now to see if it's better than actually using paper. To be continued. Okay, good question. How is this drawing app any different from any other digital drawing apps? It's a very good question. What's the big differentiator here? What's the thing? As I mentioned before, Hef Bezos, he thinks that the size will be a big differentiator. That's what he's saying. I think there could be other differentiators. Personally, I think that taking this device out in nature, in the bright sun, will be a really nice thing. Being able to travel, not have to take all different art materials. 24 inches is pretty big. That's right. That's the size of one of those older iMacs. So we're talking like... 24 inches big. That's why it's the XL 3000. Good question, Anya. Is it easy to carry around? Light? What about the battery capacity? So the specs so far, they're saying that it's just as light as the original Kindle. Very easy to carry around. I do believe there will be some sort of cover on it. Battery device lasts 24 hours, single charge. What are the 1, 3, 5-year goals for a particular drawing app? Okay, I hope some of you are starting to move into sketching the solution space at this point. So you've asked a lot of questions. I've given you a lot of context on the problem. I'll keep answering questions, of course, but we're almost at 15 minutes. That means you have 5 minutes left. At this point in the whiteboard challenge, something like 75% of the way through, you should be sketching something. You should be getting it out on the board. Don't be afraid to sketch something out, erase it, and then do it again. Excellent question, Namisha. Namisha says, how will you measure success for this app? There's the real rub. So what does success look like when young creatives improve their drawing abilities? Well, we thought a lot about this. For a little bit, we thought about going with how often they're using the app. But if we really improve their abilities, they may never use it again and become famous artists. That could be a better goal. So what we've decided to do is there's a little bit of an algorithm that tracks the speed and quality of the drawings. This is very something we've been working on for a long time at our company. I can't tell you the name of this company, but we've been in stealth for a long time. So we will be able to actually run metrics on how good the quality of the drawing is and how fast. With the combination of those two, we'll be able to judge the drawings. Yeah, it's pretty cool, David. I know. We've been working on it for 17 years. Okay, we've got 4 minutes left. 4 minutes left. You can get to sketching. Now, a little pro tip here. I would start with a user flow, just like this thing, this bit of the experience, this bit of the experience, this bit of the experience, and this bit of the experience. Then you could get that right, put numbers on it, and then below, you could do a couple detailed versions of that. So user flows, wire flows, task flows, these things are all really great things. Who is the judge of it? The algorithm's a judge. It really knows which drawings are better. It's foolproof. Yes, Ali, you can go ahead and share. Okay, do we have user personas already for this product? Might have been good to ask this a little bit earlier, but this is an excellent question. As I mentioned, we have some archetypes, not personas. We're heavy into the behavioral side of things. So yeah, what we found is people that are really all about traveling and creating art in different places as a hobby. A lot of people take these things on vacation with them and they want to unplug a little bit. So the idea here with the Kindle Sketchpad XL 3000 is that it's not going to have tons of notifications and apps all bugging you. Okay. I'm sorry if the algorithm messed you up, but that won't happen in a real design challenge. The one based on tutors and feedback. I like this approach. I like it, kind of like the Uber model, like matching them up with different people. Kind of similar to how they're doing at CareerFoundry. It's okay if you started earlier and then it forked when you didn't hear something I said or you're moving on, because like you're all going to have your own unique ways to solve this and talk about this. At this point, 2 minutes left. Okay, so wrap things up. At this point, I would start to sort of like in real life, I would start to like step away from the board, kind of gesture around, like, what do we think of this? What's going on? Do we like this? That's what I would be thinking about doing here. So close the loop. It's about time for that. CareerFoundry is raising their hand. Jakob, did you have something you wanted to say?
Yes, Jeff. I was wondering whether we should ask a couple of volunteers to come up to the stage and actually present their solutions.
I would love that.
Is that the right moment for that, or should we wait a little bit longer?
One more minute, then we'll do it. Yeah, so basically at the top of the hour.
Okay, so what we're going to do, if you are volunteering to present your solutions, please raise your hand with a little hand symbol in the chat, and then we're going to bring you up to the stage and allow your enable your mic and camera so you can present your solution. Any volunteers? Yes, Sandra.
Raising both her hands.
Okay, Sandra, I'm bringing you up to the stage. Oh, okay, you didn't mean to do it. Okay, zero pressure. Okay.
That's when we'll be like dragging you out of the audience. Okay.
Okay, we're gonna remove you. Great. Okay, let's try Memo then. Memo, we're making you a presenter. There you are.
It's okay if it's all text. Post-its, it's pretty good here.
Memo, you should be able to enable your mic and your camera and then share the screen with us. And
I know it was quick. You didn't have a lot of time, so no one's going to judge.
It's a safe space.
It's a safe space. Oh, it was an accident.
Oh, it was not an accident. Okay. Okay, no problem.
A lot of people are raising their hands, though.
Oh, okay.
It's seen Jessica, Mindy.
Oh, I can't. Oh, sorry, Memo. That's okay. Jessica? Okay, let's try Jessica. Virginia.
I don't know how to tune the mic. As you can see, I've had some issues. No, it's fine. Lots of text in one wireframe is great. We're not testing your artistic abilities. It's also really hard to draw in FigJam, as you could see in the first demonstration.
This is a workshop fueled by technical problems. Okay, Jessica, you are on stage. Please try to enable your camera.
You can also send me the link if you want me to go through it.
And we can share, yeah, we can share the screen this way.
Yeah. Okay, just a sec. I want to find.
Can you guys hear me?
Yeah.
We can hear you.
Oh, cool. Okay, I think I can share my screen. Is that what you guys want me to do? I think I
Perfect. Yeah, let's try that.
Hey, Claudia.
Cool. Am I sharing?
Hi, Virginia.
Hi. Okay, so screen.
Do I start?
Yeah, we see it.
Okay, cool. I also had a lot of text, and I didn't really get to wire anything. I'm trying to move my FigJam right now, but it's kind of cut off. But as you can see, yeah. So it kind of just decided that you would have a giant iPad, and then to show people how to draw, you'd have an image that people would draw from. So I chose this kitty cat, and I figured if they're beginners, it would teach you like textures, shading, shapes, and like wire drawings. So you'd have that, like the type of drawing you would want to draw, and then like from a set of images or another image. And then the other thing is like it could categorize types of drawings: freehand and observation, figure drawing, 2D illustration, maybe. And then this one little sketch here that I actually got to before I figured out that you can actually make squares in FigJam, which is it'll say like draw this cat, the type of drawing style, and then if you want it to be a timed exercise, there's that as well. And then maybe the drawing quality thing on the bottom. I think that's kind of it.
Amazing. I love the little cat and how you use that to show like the picture itself.
Yeah, thanks. Right.
Thank you, Jessica. Thanks so much for sharing.
Thank you, guys.
Claudia, would you like to go next?
I actually faced difficulties. Do you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Because I can't share my screen. I tap it, but nothing's happening.
Can you try again? Maybe because our previous participant was sharing. Let's try again.
I do, but if I click present slides, that works, but it no. Maybe Virginia starts, and I tried tapping.
Yeah, let's try.
Okay.
Exactly. Yeah.
Okay. Yes. Okay. And do you see it?
I think it's coming.
Not yet, but it's loading. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, we see it.
Okay, cool. Okay, so I have a kind of summary of what the concept is. And I just panicked and drew everything that came to my mind. So the idea behind this is that you basically draw on things, and progressively the exposure of the original drawing goes down. So then you're kind of independent at that point. And you have all sorts of categories here. So it can be patterns, which is the one I attempted to draw.
Mm-hmm.
And then you have several types of anatomies and landscapes. And I thought this could be handy. Literally. So yeah, simple idea, but that's the first thing that came to my mind. In 20 minutes, I mean, it just really flies by so quickly. So
it's really fast, isn't it?
Yeah, too fast.
Thanks so much, Virginia.
Thank you, guys.
Okay, now that you got to see a few, I think you can start to see what's possible. Maybe one day FigJam will allow us to kind of all work in the same board and see how everyone is sketching, but it's still in beta, so that's not quite available. But we really appreciate you sticking through this for 20 minutes. It's actually quite difficult to get through in 20 minutes, as you could see. So yeah, it's probably going to be around 30 minutes in real life, a little bit of more time, probably something like that, maybe even longer, depending on the situation. But now you know how that feels. You know how rushed that feels. You know how difficult it is to get to any sort of solution and still ask for context around the problem. So maybe now you can think about different ways that you could potentially share your time and things like that. So that's your first attempt. That's your first practice. It'll get easier from here. So congratulations. Well done. You made it through the challenge. You can have access to this FigJam. You can keep that link after this. Just search for it on FigJam. I'll keep it up there. You can do this on your own. And you can give yourself a design challenge from designer size, and you can do this whole thing over again. So to those of you that made it, the Jeffs have a prize for you. So what I want you to do is go to this part of the FigJam board. It's on the far, 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 far right. So on the far, 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 far right, you're going to see that there is a trophy in the middle of a gray box. And this is my gift to you for making it through. So click the unlock button. You see that I've highlighted there. The unlock button here, you click that, and then you'll be able to move this entire thing over to the side. And underneath, I've left you a little surprise. Underneath, that's where I've left how I would maybe approach a whiteboard design challenge. I tried to give you a little framework. I sat down for like 4 hours and worked on like, what would I do the perfect whiteboard design challenge? So there's a little bit more details in that. This is kind of how I would structure it. I would kind of divide it up like this. Again, there's like problem on this side, solution on this side. Then the way I would do is just like restate the problem statement really nice and punchy and well. Just to get everyone on board. Then I would just write all the context below here, just giving lots of room, constraints, all kinds of things that might go in there. And then business goals. So I would think about the business goals first. As creatives, that might surprise them a little bit. You know, they'll be like, oh, he thinks about the business goals. And then, of course, balance that by talking about the user goals. So that's kind of how I would handle the left side, the problem stuff. And then on here, I would start with the task flow, just high level, even like text. Like first they do this, then they do this, then they do this, then they do this. Simple as that. And then I would get into wire flows. Look up wire flows, Google that when you're done here. I think wire flows are a really cool kind of understanding to have. There's a great article on UX Collective about wire flows that gives you a little bit of perspective into that. I actually there's the way that you can link to that later. I'll talk about that here in a second. So yeah, if you want to shoot for the stars, pro tips for UX and product designers in real life. So yeah, divide up your board into sections and organize it. Dividing it up into sections, maybe a little bit beforehand, maybe a little bit as you go, allows you to organize your work and then go like, cool, I'm moving on. Running out of time, I'm gonna move on to the right side. This will help you think on your feet a little bit. Putting all the context in the problem on the left side, putting the big picture solutions on the right side. That could be a nice way to organize it. Talk as you sketch. That's going to take practice. If you want to get back into the whiteboard simulator challenge thing in FigJam, next time try talking out loud as you do it. Maybe have a friend sort of watch you, give you a little bit of pressure. Include the audience. So you were doing that. You were asking me questions. I would be the audience. Typically, I'd be the person hiring. So yeah, that was great. Just like that. Include me. If I give you some suggestions or if I like something, an idea, work it in there. Don't be afraid to erase and redraw. It doesn't have to be final. You can erase whiteboards. Grab a little eraser, fix it, move on. That's called an iteration, and we love that. Save time at the end for feedback. This is that close the loop thing. So yeah, this will be something you can use if you want to go into your whiteboard challenge with a little bit more thinking, a little bit tips from an X design manager, and this might be able to help you out. So I hope that this is useful for you. There's a little bit time now. We've got 15 minutes. You can ask anything you'd like. I actually have a lot of research. This is my research board. Lots and lots of research on whiteboarding, lots and lots of little details, talking about like do's and don'ts, things to think about. Of course, very much based on opinion. Here's the article from UX Collective. User flow is a new wireframe. I'm going to post all of this tomorrow, and I can send you the link for that. So tomorrow I'm going to post this in my newsletter. You can see it there. You can go to that link, and I'll post that tomorrow. So you can get all the research, all behind the scenes. So if you have questions on that stuff, if you have questions on anything in this slide, you can get a little bit of that research. So that'll be something you can take with you into the next design challenge. But I wanted to give a little time for questions, so feel free to ask questions.
Thank you, Jeff. So yeah, a couple of people are asking if we're going to share the recording. Yes, we will share the recording. We'll send you an email together with the research that Jeff just spoke about. Jeff, do you mind posting the link to the FigJam with the research? Do you have it on hand? Maybe we can share it.
I don't have it on hand. Let me see if I can do that really quickly.
If not, then we'll add it to the emails that I'll send out a bit later. And if you have any questions for Jeff, please post them in the Q&A. You can actually upvote all the questions there, so we can get started with that. Testing Jeff's multitasking while I'm asking him a technical question, and he's trying to post a link. Question number 1, where can I find whiteboard challenges exercises?
Designersize.com. It's also in the simulator that you were just in.
Great resource. So during whiteboarding or during the whiteboard challenge, what's more important? Is it solving the problem or going through the process? Who, what, where, when, ideation, etc.?
This is a good question. I saw a lot of research on people saying like, follow the design thinking process, or these very specific steps that you might follow in the design process. But I would be very careful about forcing some sort of design process to fit in something as quick as a whiteboard challenge. I mean, maybe the double diamond is pretty quick. It's just, the problem space and the solution space. That's kind of how I was thinking about the left and the right side of the board. That's a quick way to think about it, but you don't want to get into like 5, 6, 7 steps in the process. You have to be able to think on your feet, and you're probably only going to have around 15 minutes for that kind of stuff, maybe 10. So keep it simple. That's why I kind of wanted to leave you with the ABCs, because I feel like that's something you can keep in your mind. Remember those ABC: ask for context on the problem, big picture experience, not details, and close the loop at the end. So that's about as much as I'd want to have in my head as I'm walking into it. Maybe you could practice your own this framework or your own framework beforehand, so then that's really stuck in your memory, and you don't have to be thinking about that. So I think practice is really important here, and I wouldn't try and force some sort of complicated process on top of a design challenge.
And what's your opinion about FigJam replacing Miro? Do you think it's possible?
I think that FigJam and Miro have different audiences. I think Miro has a lot of non-designers as an audience. I use Miro to teach like once a week, usually. I mean, they already added reactions to keep up with some of the things FigJam is doing. I'm actually going to write about this tomorrow in the newsletter, but like I've used Miro and Mural actually a lot, and then now I've used FigJam a lot this past week getting ready for this, and getting like ready where I could publish a template on FigJam. It's a whole process. And I would say that like for quick, simple things, I liked FigJam better. I just thought the interactions were better. I love the stamps. If you press E while you're working, you can just press E twice and flip whether you want a stamp or a reaction. Is super cool. You can even type on your cursor. So like instead of your name on your cursor, you can be like, hey, what's up? All this makes for like really fun interactions. We couldn't do that because there's too many people in this workshop. We were hoping to try out some of these things, but it's not quite ready. It's still in beta. I think that Miro is going to have them beat for like the scale and tons of people and things like that because they've been around for a little bit longer. But I don't know. Figma's also pretty scalable at the moment, so I'm looking forward to seeing it. I mean, this kind of competition is really good for us as designers because the more they compete, the better the interactions, the better the features and things like that. Like FigJam came out 3 weeks later, Miro released reactions. So this is good for us.
And not a question here, but I wonder what tools are you using as a UX designer?
Me personally?
Mm-hmm.
Figma, so much Figma. I really like Figma. I've got so much in there. That's why I think I was a little drawn to FigJam because I have so many files and assets and things already in Figma. I could just copy paste, which is super cool. But I also use Miro a lot. Just the ability, when you're actually facilitating a workshop, you're going to love the things Miro can do. Like tonight was a little bit difficult for me because I'm quite used to some of the things Miro can do. You know, and like, you know, you can play music while you're setting a timer. Like there's a timer and some things like that, you know, like just simple little things. I'm sure FigJam will catch up, but if you're running workshops, you're going to want Miro. If you're in a workshop, you're going to want FigJam. That's kind of where I feel like it sits.
It's so much fun. What about wireframing? Is wireframing always necessary in the whiteboard challenge?
No, in fact, if you can keep from it, I wouldn't get into wireframes. Like you could have a little bit lower fidelity, so zoomed out a little bit more. In that research document that I sent out, you can see there's different fidelities. Wireframe, I've quite question mark. It's like maybe if it's a UI interview, sure, go for it. The UX product interview, if you feel more comfortable doing it, go for it. But I like wire flows, user flows with a little bit of details in them, but not as much detail as a wireframe. Just because I don't want to sit there and watch a designer sketch out buttons and layouts. It's like we all know what the internet looks like. All the design patterns are set. Like what I want to know is the big picture experience. I want to know if you can think about like a broader perspective. But I'm also thinking more from the senior perspective, you know, zooming out. So, you know, that's a little bit of my bias probably. If you're just going for a job where you're going to be creating UI, then wireframes are great because that directly shows what you're going to be doing for your job. So yeah, there's no right way to do these things. A lot of these things I'm saying are based on bias and opinion. I tried to do my research. I tried to make sure the ABC was pretty universal. I tried to make sure that like the problem solution thing would be something you could use, but you're gonna hear different things. In that research wall, there's one of my favorite videos. It was hard to find on YouTube. She really inspired a lot of the ways that I was thinking about this layout. It's the video with like hearts and stars all over it. So that's the one I like the best if you want to get a demo of how she did it.
And you mentioned UI design. So how is the UI whiteboard challenge different from a UX whiteboard challenge?
So I think you're going to get more into actual design patterns. You know, I don't really think you should get into details if you can avoid it. But if you're going for a UI design job, then like, you know, you can throw the hamburger menu or something like that. You can put, you know, a circle where the logo goes and some stuff like that. Like I think that's okay. And of course, if you want to get detailed with the UI and you're really quick at it, you don't have to think about it. You can just go, then go for it. Like I think you just don't want to add style. Like you don't want to see any styling. And wireframe is definitely as a low fidelity wireframe is as much styling and detail as I would add.
And coming back to ABC, closing the loop, do you have any practical tips about that?
Ask them if they think the experience gets at the problem and the challenge that they laid out. Like, just ask them. Like, I think what people forget is they get so attached to the new constraints and the new details, and they forget to go back to like the original challenge. That's why I think it's really important to write that up here and write it in a way that everyone agrees on. If you just talk about how like, oh, well, I heard you say the problem and I didn't write it down in the beginning, then you're going to lose track of it. And getting a problem statement written out that everyone agrees on is a really pretty much, that's the deliverable for research a lot of times, like just getting everyone on board with the problem statement. So that's a big part of it. And then that's what I mean by close the loop, is like coming back to that original challenge here. That's just a way to make sure that you solved it right. Like you might have gone off, you might have been nervous, talking a lot, going through different things, and then you might find that like, oh, okay, like I lost track a little bit. Like, what was that original challenge? So like, I'd say like leave yourself like 2-3 minutes for feedback and critique at the end of the challenge. That's a sneaky little way to make sure that you covered all your bases, right?
Nice. There are actually quite a few questions about time management. One question from Zoe: how do you manage time effectively? I usually spend too much time on the discovery phase. I feel like it's hard to ideate without fully understanding the problem. And then that kind of links nicely to Memo's question when he kind of comes back to drawing wireframes, and he started right away with drawing wireframes, and he's asking if it's no-go. So like, how much time do you recommend spending on each section?
I mean, just to keep it easy to remember, maybe just half and half, like half the board, half the time. I mean, there's no perfect way here. The only thing I want you to, I'm pushing the ask for the context around the problem, because I think that's something you might forget to do. But it could get annoying if they're just kind of like, stop asking me questions, just show me something. That's a possibility. Not everyone is going to be clued to the idea of that a UX designer is a problem finder, not just a problem solver. Like that, designers can do research. Like a lot of people aren't going to be clued in on that. They might know what a UX designer is, but they won't know what UX research is. So you're going to run into that a lot of places. Maybe if it's more of a product design job, they're going to be more into the experimental side, iterating, lean startup, build, measure, learn, not a lot of research, a lot of more like running experiments. Then they may want you to like do several iterations, right? Like I think it really depends on the type of role you're going for. It can't hurt to ask for context. It can't hurt to iterate. It can't hurt to do all these things, to talk as you sketch, to include your audience. That's why I was really afraid to like say you should do this or that. That's why I kind of hid that step forward at the very end, because I was like, I want you to try it out yourself. But I feel like you can't go wrong with these things for UX and product design interviews. So there's asterisks all over that answer.
And during the challenge, when you're in front of the whiteboards with people behind you watching you, do you talk through your thought process? What do you do? Do you like maybe indicate that, I don't know, do you talk about research that needs to be done for the project?
I wouldn't talk too much about like things that would happen outside of this little discussion. Like I wouldn't say like, yeah, we're going to need to do research because this is just 30 minutes in Whiteboard Challenge. Like you want to treat it like a simulation. Like this is us doing the whole project in these 30 minutes. And I mean, 30 minutes is just sort of what I found when I was doing research as the common time amount. It could be longer. I know we've done whiteboard or design challenges for like 90 minutes, I think, to 2 hours at CareerFoundry at one point, where it was more like they were using design tools. So a lot of people will do different things. They might leave you in the room by yourself, come back and check on you, and then you don't have any context. And then I would just like iterate a few times, right? So yeah, I mean, as I was saying, they're all so varied. Like that's why it was interesting when I was doing the research to see like how different companies approached it.
Let's see. You mentioned at the beginning of the challenge, you would ask for the business goals first. Which would that be for this challenge?
For this challenge, what are maybe our user targets? Like, you know, how do we know this project is a success from the business perspective? Because like they may learn to draw better, right? They may get better at their drawing skills, but like, what about the other side of it? You could reverse that. You could do user goals first, then business goals. I'm UX designer turned founder now, so I'm thinking a lot about business goals, right? So I think it's also me thinking that's more important myself. But you know, for a junior, mid-level, even senior position, maybe you could switch it and put user goals first. The business goals is just like, of course, it has to work for the customer, and that's you're always thinking about, is this desirable to the end user? Desirability is a big part of your role, but there's also feasibility, like, you know, can we build this? Is this something that the developers can handle? And viability, like, will this be a sustainable business initiative? So, you know, I always tell people to think about those three domains. That's about as simple as you could put the different ways of thinking on a product team. So feasibility, viability, and desirability. The business goals gets at a little bit of the viability. And I think in this sort of simulated environment, you don't have to think about the tech stuff. I don't think you're going to have a developer in there during the whiteboard challenge. Maybe you will, but I think just getting a little bit into the business shows, cool, you understand a little bit more than just the design stuff and just the user and the customer-facing stuff.
Nice. And we have time for maybe last more question. And with everything going remote, and many of the interviews not taking place in person, how do the whiteboard challenges work at the moment? Is it something like we just experienced with sharing links and having some time aside?
I've seen more take-home tests. Yeah, thanks for putting that in, Emily and Blake. Yeah, I've seen more take-home tests where it's like, okay, you know, you've got a weekend design challenge or something like that. Like, because that's also something that's been happening for a long, long time. Like, I had a weekend design challenge actually for SoundCloud at one point, and I spent I stayed up all I think I worked for 48 hours straight, and I did the whole app, and it was too much. I didn't get the job because I worked too much on it. So that's kind of the danger of the weekend design challenge, is you want to do too much work, too many details. And they probably were just looking for a sketch on a napkin, you know, they're aware of how long these things should take, and they try and make them where they don't kill you, right? So if it's killing you, these design challenges, then you're probably doing it wrong.
Nice. And with that, we're gonna wrap up. So thank you all for sticking it with us.
Yeah, I really appreciate that. I was hauling all my equipment 3 blocks and sweating and got on the call, so we appreciate that.
And thank you for joining, and thank you for those brave volunteers who got on the stage. And once again, if you are not a CareerFoundry student yet, and you have any questions about our programs, please reach out to one of our program advisors, and you'll be able to book a free call with one of them, with the page you'll be redirected to after this webinar. And we'll also ask you for a quick feedback about this event. So in about a couple of hours, you'll be sent out a very, very short survey. So it will be amazing if you could fill it out and let us know what you thought. And with that, I wish you good morning, good evening, wherever you're based. Thank you, Jeff, for presenting today. That was fantastic. And yeah, we'll see you soon.